Now, don't get me wrong, I still think that infrastructure is going to be important for the company when they do arrive in the US market, but I don't think that they're going to come out swinging the same way that they did in China. And to testify to this, if you look at William Li, CEO and chairman's recent comments during the Q4 earnings call about NIO in Europe. If you want to be a part of the conversation before it happens here on YouTube, click that link in the description to join the free Courtside Financial Discord. What's going on, everyone? My name's Obi and welcome back to Courtside Financial. Today we're going to be talking about why I feel like NIO could be experiencing some headwinds if they do come into the US market. So this is going to be an interesting video. This is going to be revolving around something that I talk about pretty much every day, all the time in my videos, and a big focus point for me when it comes to this company. So before we get into the video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. I try to respond to every single comment. Okay, so yesterday I was reading an article titled that Hyundai wants to bring their charging infrastructure into the US. And so immediately I thought about NIO. And I've always kind of had this thought, and I already discussed it on the channel in multiple videos, even in recent videos. But this was just something that kind of more or less validated it. The article talked about how Tesla has the best ratings for charging infrastructure, and there are companies like Electrify America, like EVgo, and all these other companies that are in the private sector but solely exist just for charging infrastructure, which consumers are not really the happiest with. So clearly, aside from not having enough charging infrastructure in America for battery electric vehicles, we also have the problem of the quality of the existing charging infrastructure. And so if you think about a company like Tesla, we'll get to NIO in a second, but if you think about a company like Tesla, the Biden administration is pretty much dangling $7.5 billion over their head to open up their technology to other EV companies in order to solve this problem that we have with the charging infrastructure. More electric vehicles are beginning to take market share slowly but surely, and the infrastructure is not getting any better unless you have a Tesla. And that's obviously my opinion from what I read on the internet, from what I hear from people. But anyways, now moving on to NIO. So you might be saying, why does NIO have a problem then? So I think NIO has a problem because NIO is a company that is pretty much hell-bent on getting as much infrastructure on the ground as quickly as possible, and kind of widening the competitive moat through infrastructure, allowing their users or customers to refuel their vehicles in more ways than one, whether that be supercharging, battery swapping, power mobile, destination charging, at-home charging, whatever you want to call it. NIO has all these different solutions for charging. And so my bull case with NIO is that they are on a mission to pretty much, with the markets that they're in right now, get as much infrastructure out there as fast as possible. And in my opinion, I think NIO is doing things that are way more innovative than a company like Hyundai. And not to bash Hyundai at all, but when you think about all these different competitors who are already in the US market talking about deploying infrastructure, and NIO's not even in the market, they're kind of a little bit behind. So I think that a lot of people say that for NIO to come into the US market right now would be a detrimental decision, which could be true, but a lot of their strategy revolves around, like I said, creating that moat around the infrastructure. And so if they're not in the US market and all these other companies are deploying infrastructure, and Tesla is already leading the race as far as infrastructure goes, NIO is going to have to really take a different approach when they get to the US market. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think that infrastructure is going to be important for the company when they do arrive in the US market, but I don't think that they're going to come out swinging the same way that they did in China. And to testify to this, if you look at William Li, CEO and chairman's recent comments during the Q4 earnings call about NIO in Europe. They feel that the infrastructure progression is not up to expectations. And so it becomes very difficult when you're not in your hometown and you don't have policy support. And we'll get back to the video, but I want to pause here because shout out to Stefanos, one of the moderators in the Discord, had actually asked someone who works for NIO a question based on this before people get in the comments and say, of course NIO has policy support in Norway, or of course NIO has policy support in Europe, not to the same extent that they do in China. So I'm not going to put anybody's name out there other than give Stefanos a shout out, because I don't know if this guy wants his information out there. But Stefanos said, hello, quick question regarding the swap station. I hear that in some locations, local governments are throttling/preventing the expansion of charging infrastructure as electricity providers are already overwhelmed and EV tech is moving too fast while they are too slow. Is this issue applicable to swap stations? If so, are you working on a solution? Hi, Stefanos. A lot to unfold to answer this question. In general, governments are positive towards EV solutions and are supporting new concepts like battery swapping. When it comes down to the level of implementation, then governments, grid operators, and energy companies are working to find solutions to, for example, the Netherlands, and deal with issues like grid congestion. The best solution is to have close and meaningful relationships to the governments, associations, and communities, and this is what NIO is doing. NIO would indeed want to deploy swap stations much faster, and this would require grid connection granting and construction permitting would be quicker. Stefanos responded to that saying, I see, I'm just hoping that this does not affect the infrastructure expansion speed throughout Europe. I'm sure you will make it eventually regardless. Thanks for the reply. It affects our ambitious deployment strategy for sure, but in the end, we cannot just look at ourselves and must consider all factors that affect our ability to deploy. We won't do any less swap stations though. Worst case, they come out a bit later. So hopefully they can get policymakers in Europe to kind of supercharge their infrastructure efforts, no pun intended. And so I also think that something that's going to be really important is if battery swapping is going to work out in the US, because that would also give NIO some sort of competitive advantage when it comes down to refueling, given that I believe personally that they are the best electric vehicle maker that is doing battery swapping, and they have tons and tons of patents around the technology. Bringing that technology over to the US and having it work would be amazing for the company. Now, I do know that in Norway, the vast majority of NIO customers are choosing battery as a service. So they're choosing to rent the battery and own the car, which also in turn means that they do believe in battery swapping as well. Also, NIO has partnered with Tibber as of yesterday, which is a smart energy provider. So for people whose houses are being powered by Tibber, they can actually optimize the way that their car is charged and make sure that they're charging it at the cheapest hours, and smart features and things of the sort. Anyways, I do think that's something to really think about with NIO when they come to the US market. What type of strategy are they going to have? Because the strategy does have to be different in my opinion, otherwise this thing is not going to work over here. Or are they just going to mainly focus on the cars and use other people's infrastructure to charge the cars, or are they just going to go full out with the infrastructure like they're already doing in China and Europe, and have battery swapping stations, superchargers, power mobiles, and of course they will have at home charging piles. But anyways, that's something that I just thought about yesterday, and I wanted to put out a video and point that out. And I do want to know what you guys think about the topic. Maybe you guys can educate me here. Maybe you guys know something that I don't know. So like I said, that's going to be it for this video. Make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment down below. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video.